Yeah. So I did my presentation on the histories of Holocaust literature. I felt like throughout the class, one of the biggest points of like conjecture for me was just mainly about the literature aspect of the Holocaust, which is a big reason why I did the course in the beginning. Because I thought that was really interested in me. The Holocaust is obviously one of the most tragic events in human history, and it has shaped all of our like main point around morality of our history in about humans. Something that very fascinates me a lot when I'm thinking about this. Because when I think about the Holocaust as a whole, I think about how humans view like one of the things, like I'm a psychology major, so there was like a study about just the fact of like how like something that's fascinating me in psychology is the fact of how people can be manipulated to do actions. Like how could a group of people across Germany could be like sort of manipulated to have like this idea that what they're doing is just, that what they're doing to the Jews is just, that the massive extermination of the Jews is a just act. And it's kind of difficult to believe that from like a standpoint of like from us, because it's like from our perspective, it's like this is such a heinous human act to do. This is absolutely despicable. There's no way that I would be wanting to agree with this, but I definitely feel like the Holocaust as a whole, like, and the extermination of the 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany, really like pinpoints a factor of how you truly don't know how the human brain could implement itself when faced with certain aspects of like how, for example, when you're raising an idea, like for example, Germany after World War One was they're not in a very good place. They're in a very rough place, having to pay a lot of reparations, and with the ideas of like having the stuff like that, and you have obviously Adolf Hitler who came into power. You can see the fact of how like when you're put into a spot of like adversity, put into a spot of like hopelessness, how the ideals can change the person. And I feel like education about the Holocaust, like it provides a starting point to examine warning signs that can indicate the potential for mass atrocity. Like the study raises a lot of questions about human behavior and the capacity to succumb to scapegoating, or simple answers, or to complex problems in the face of societal challenges. So within my PowerPoint, I felt like a very implementing point was the fact of how the Holocaust as a whole is the dangers of prejudice, discrimination, anti-Semitism, and dehumanization. Also about the forward human responses, and how like human behavior like that affects all societies is able to be successfully of scapegoating inside for simple answers to complex problems. The potential for extreme violence and abuse of power, and also fear, oppression, indifference, greed, resentment can play a role in a lot of social and political relations. And it's a very interesting form of this when I was talking about this with the overview of emphasis of literature about the Holocaust, because as a whole, literature by and about women and the Holocaust supposed the impact of Nazi genocide about women during and after war, which is a very big component of what I was talking about, with the fact of like how women were affected during the Holocaust, and how this impacted it on generations to come. Throughout, I believe like in this class we talked a lot about the experience of women, based on a range of literacy genres, including fiction, poetry, drama, and memoir. Women Holocaust is widely exposed to the intersection of history, imagination, Jewishness, and gender, which placing women at the center rather than on the periphery. Women's Holocaust writing expands our understanding of the impact of Nazi atrocities on families and intimate relationships, also on vulnerabilities of women and on the agency of women to contend with, resist, respond to, and interpret experiences and memories. I wanted to go into detail about the Holocaust memoirs because two specifically very fascinated me. One was by Gisela Pearl, who wrote the book "I Was a Doctor in Auschwitz." Sorry. Sorry for mispronouncing that. To put such, Pearl was a Romanian Jewish gynecologist deported to Auschwitz concentration camp in 1944, where she was helped hundreds of women to as an innate gynecologist without the bare necessities of perform her work. And this is a very big basis of what I was talking about, with the fact of like how women were portrayed in media throughout the Holocaust, and even outside in our society after that, the portrayal of women as like kind of this like species like housewives, like kind of like dwelling in the fact of like they're not really like emphasized as much as like important figures in history, which they definitely are. They're definitely very, very important figures. As one of these figures is Pearl. She was this is actually the first account of the Holocaust survivor that was actually a woman in this account. And it goes into very, very deep detail about the fact of, as I previously mentioned before, about the ideology of gendered Nazi practices and practices that target Jewish women as racially grotesque and degrading. But for Pearl's memoir, it's very, very significant. I said that Pearl's memoir was significant for the inclusion of Nazi women's victims, as well as in in-depth representation of Nazi women guards and other personnel. Unlike many important Holocaust memoirs, Pearl's writing is both graphic and it's very, very horrific detail. It's very, very grotesque in its emotional response. It's actually very, very emotional. Such as in one of her accounts, as it mentions that when she was being forced to work alongside the doctor Joseph Mengele in his infamous clinic, and she basically would save the lives of many very women prisoners who were forced to have to go through abortion or infanticide. Very, very, very tough things that women were going through during the Holocaust, during this time. Topics that remain very, very silent, and I very, very want to emphasize the idea of these things being silenced, because I feel like a lot of the pinpoints between the Holocaust very, very much related to things that, like, as a society, like, we've been pushed to think that these ideas should be silenced, and it's kind of like a wave, like the Holocaust is like the main theme of how, like, humans as a whole throughout society have been discriminated against towards, like, different based on race, class, social standing, like very, very things like that. And it very, very emphasizes the struggle of women during the troubling times of the Holocaust, but also represents a true telling sign of how blatantly hidden these accounts were from the general public based on the spirit of discrimination towards women. Very, 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 very important aspect of that. I also did one on Gola Yengel with her book Five Chimneys, the story of Auschwitz, where within the story, accounts of her family going to Auschwitz to avoid harsh labor for her children by sending her children and her mother taken to chimneys, which are really crematories, for them to be killed. The main theme, but something that very, very fascinated me about Lengel's account was her emphasis on wanting to survive, to tell the tale. And it's very, very important that I feel like in these in the essence of Holocaust literature, which overall Holocaust literature is here to understand the past as well as serve as a basis for the present and future. These are accounts of some of the most tragic events in human history, and they let us understand the ramifications of how evil human beings can be, but also how easily they can be manipulated when ideas spread across a culture. In essence, like, the memoirs that I've stated in here are like, they're like accounts that, like, serve as a basis for the future. It's basically like, I'm sure you heard of the quote, history repeats itself. Like, you know, like, history repeats itself, like, in certain ways, and how, like, you try not to repeat history in certain aspects. I feel like within these memoirs, the main theme about these memoirs is the fact of why they are served to, like, be a basis for humans to follow in the future. Because I feel like within certain events and within the 1900s, obviously very, very times with both world wars, the Holocaust, very, very big events in human history, we come to an ideal to understand the fact of how we as humans, even though we think that we might not be easily manipulated, there are certain things that, like, we just don't know. We truly don't know as a society. You can't truly know as a society how you're gonna act in some way based on how you grew up, based on how the situations you were brought to, the culture you were brought into. Like, these are very, very important factors within how a person develops and how a person becomes. Because it's very, 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 very easy to say that you wouldn't become a person that they became in the past, but truthfully, culture matters. Culture is very, very important. Culture is a lot. Culture means a lot, basically everything to a lot of people, you know. And I feel like the basis of this, like, the Holocaust literature, is just to emphasize the importance of how humans can become. How I guess the word is evil humans can become, you know, in the sense of that. I feel like most of these memoirs capture the sense of chaos during and after the war. Like Diaries and Chronicles written during the war, or in memoirs offer a sense of diversity of Jewish life and Jewish responses to the German onslaught, as well as the ethnic, religious, and political differences among the Jews caught in the genocide arrived. They constantly are derived by the focus on details of everyday life under radically abnormal circumstances. I mean, these memoirs are shaped by the country, social class, education, age, and the degree of Jewish identity and assimilation that the writer experienced prior to the war. And I feel like these accounts are a basis of what we should try to avoid as human society as a whole. Like one of the biggest aspects of Holocaust history, I think it really helps, is understanding other cultures. It's understanding how other cultures act. Sorry, my days on, but just implementing how other cultures are and understanding other cultures is very, very important. And that's basically what my PowerPoint was implicating. Just how understanding other cultures is very, very important. And that's the basis of how we prevent other Holocausts from happening. So yeah.